by introducing myself and talking a little bit about what we're going to do today. So we're going to talk about cooking without oil. For those of you who don't already know, Nature's Plate is whole food, plant-based meal prep here locally in Dallas. And we have a kitchen, a commercial kitchen, where we prepare large numbers of whole food, plant-based, no oil meals on a weekly basis. And we also like to share, not as much during 2020, unfortunately, so we're very happy to do it this way, but share cooking techniques and things that you can do at home to eat healthier. So I'm just going to get my laptop in here real quickly so that I can see what's happening with you guys, and so that I can answer questions and that type of thing. I'm Annette. I'm co-owner and co-founder of Nature's Plate. My sister Marianne and I usually do these together, but I'm doing it on my own tonight, so that's one reason that things are a little bit chaotic. But anyway, we are launching a new initiative for January around eating right and feeling amazing. That's what it's called, Eat Right and Feel Amazing. And you know, we chose that theme. Obviously, we're all about eating right and specifically eating whole food, plant-based. But also, there are lots of reasons to eat right for your health. There are just all kinds of reasons. But what they all have, whether you're trying to build your immune system, lose weight, combat disease. There are so many, whether you're battling a specific situation in your life or, fuel your athletic routine or whatever it is. But what they all have in common is that you feel amazing no matter what. So that is why we chose that theme. And I'll talk a little bit more about this at the end, but we do have a special discount going on. If you choose to have us do some of your meal prep. For weekly meal plans, you can get $10 off each week for 4 weeks in a row on a new plan. And if you're already a customer, you should share your referral code so that you can get $15 off every time somebody uses your code, and they can also get the $40. So, why no oil? We get that question a lot, and it is it's definitely something that people wonder about, especially with whole food, plant-based cooking, I think, and people who really like to cook are used to having a bottle of oil around and using that. Especially olive oil is considered to be healthy. So why no oil? Well, oil is not a whole food. It's been extracted from another food, which automatically makes it lower in nutrient density and devoid of fiber, and higher in calorie density. And oil in particular is very high in calorie density. It has a lot of calories for the weight and for the volume, and it has no fiber and very few nutrients. It is true that we need fat in our diet, but if you get that fat from whole foods, specifically, for instance, with olive oil, if you eat an olive or several olives, it's a lot healthier than eating olive oil. The olive is the way that nature intended us to consume that oil. And same goes for coconuts and coconut oil, or corn and corn oil. It makes a lot more sense to eat the whole food. Consequently, because it's lower in nutrients and fiber, it's not as good for our immune system. It can cause us to gain weight or keep us from maintaining a healthy weight. It crowds out the good things in our diet, and specifically phytonutrients that help us fight disease, and therefore keeps us from feeling amazing. So that's why it's a big part of Eat Right and Feel Amazing. So I'm going to start by, I'm really going to show you 2 techniques tonight, and I'm going to show you those with a couple of different varieties of ingredients. But the first thing that I'm going to do is a no oil saute, because that is the thing. I'm going to turn this burner on real quick. That is the thing that we get the most questions about. So many recipes start with sauteing aromatic vegetables, whether it's onions or peppers or mushrooms or garlic or a combination of those things. And you do not need oil to start your recipes. That comes up with like soups, chilies, any kind of casserole, all kinds of things that start with a saute. and generally of onions and that type of thing. You do, or even with like Indian food or other Asian food, with, you know, if you're starting with ginger and garlic, and you do not need oil to start that saute. So you also do not need a special pan. This is a regular stainless steel skillet, which is what I'm going to use. If you want to use ceramic cookware, it is a little bit easier. I wouldn't recommend any other non-stick cookware, especially not Teflon, which I think everyone knows is a problem. But you can do it in just a regular stainless steel skillet. So what I've done here is just add my chopped onions to a hot pan. There's nothing else here. And the important thing here is to stir it a lot. And if it starts to stick, you can add just a little bit of water. But I actually prefer to saute almost completely dry. And especially if I'm using mushrooms, because the mushrooms release their own liquid. But you can add just a little bit of water if it starts to stick. But I'm going to add the mushrooms and get those going, and then I don't think we'll need any water. Another important thing to know is that you want to use a spatula with a flat edge, not a spoon, because with the spatula you can really scrape the pan and keep everything from sticking. If it does start to stick a little bit, it's okay. Generally, you're going to add some liquid to this pan at some point during this process, depending on what you're making, and you can deglaze the pan with that. But obviously you don't want it to burn, and you don't want everything to just stick to the bottom. So you can use a little bit of water. So I'm going to go ahead and add some mushrooms. These are cremini mushrooms that are just sliced or chopped. You can use regular white mushrooms also. Either way, they may or may not release a lot of liquid. Cremini tend to release a little bit more, but you want to definitely not add much water if you're using mushrooms, because they probably will release a lot of water once they get hot. You usually don't really notice it because the oil in the pan takes up, it disguises it, and you don't really see it, but you'll see it in this case. And I'm going to go ahead and add some green bell pepper also. What I'm doing here is the start of my favorite tofu scramble. But obviously this could be the start of a lot of different recipes. Everything from, you know, lasagna to a soup, or just all kinds of things start with a combination of these aromatic vegetables. And this is starting to stick just a little bit, so I'm just scraping it. My mushrooms might be pretty dry tonight, so here in a minute, if I don't get some liquid going, I will add just a little bit of water. While I'm doing that, I'll point out a couple of other things. I'm going to also show you how to roast vegetables without oil. That's going to be the second part of this. And I'm not going to complete the tofu scramble necessarily, but I will tell you what else is going into it in case you want to make it at home. Just because I want to focus on the techniques where you would normally use the oil. Y'all may have noticed that I've got my tofu pressing here behind me underneath the base of my Vitamix. Did y'all know that a Vitamix makes a great tofu press? I'm going to pull that out in just a minute, but anything heavy makes a great tofu press. But the base of a Vitamix is probably, or a food processor, it's probably one that I've used more than anything in the past. I'm going to check and see if y'all have any questions. It doesn't look like so far. Hi Patricia, well we got two people named Patricia on. Hello, and yes, awesome. Okay, if y'all do have any questions, I will get to them. I won't be as fast as when Marianne and I are both on, but I'll get to them when there's a lull in the process for sure. I'm going to go ahead and add just a little bit of water. These mushrooms are not as wet as they sometimes are, and you can see there's a little bit of browning on this pan. When I lift the pan up, this burner will beep at me, so that's what that is. So I just put probably a tablespoon of water, and now I'm able to very easily scrape that browning off of the bottom of the pan. And browning is, it tastes good. That's where you get a lot of flavor. I'm also turning up the heat just a little bit. While this is cooking, now that it's not sticking, and you can see that these vegetables are starting to cook down, and they will brown even without oil in there. I'm going to go ahead and get my tofu out of the tofu press and start crumbling that up also. So I just have it pressing under there between two cutting boards and some dish towels. And I have paper towels closest to the tofu also. I'm going to put gloves on just because I'm just used to it from being in a commercial kitchen. I know I'm probably the only one who's going to eat this tofu scramble, but I've gotten to where I'm really used to using gloves and I don't like getting the food all over my hands. Okay, bowl for the tofu. So what you would do with this is this is one block of tofu cut in half this direction and then pressed, and then you just want to crumble it up into a bowl. And you can crumble it as much or as little as you want to, but just as long as you break it apart. And we do not want to leave our vegetables sitting too long. These are cooking up very nicely at this point. The onions are getting a little bit brown and the mushrooms are cooking down. I love mushrooms. I know there are some people who are opposed to them, and you can certainly make a tofu scramble without them, but I think they really make the scramble for sure. Okay, we're gonna let that dry out just a little bit more. And then what I will do is add the spices next, and then the tofu. You always want to add your spices, no matter what you're making. Once you saute your aromatic vegetables, whether that's onions, peppers, ginger, garlic, whatever you're using, and ginger and garlic should go in a little after the onions and peppers and mushrooms if you're using them. Then you want to add your spices to this mix and let them coat the onions a little bit, or coat whatever vegetables are in there, and steam for just about 30 to 60 seconds. That makes a big difference with the amount of flavor that you get out of your spices. It makes a bigger difference than pretty much anything that you do with the spices. And you don't want to put your fresh herbs in at that point. If you've got fresh cilantro or fresh parsley or rosemary, that goes in at the end. But your dried spices. So what I'm going to put in here is basil, oregano, there's a little salt in here, and some turmeric. The turmeric serves two purposes. It is to color it a little bit yellow. It's also just really good for you. It's anti-inflammatory, has a lot of phytonutrients, just really good for you. A lot of antioxidants. Okay, so I'm sprinkling in those spices, and then I'm gonna let those coat the onions a little bit. And these mushrooms really were strange today, and this will happen. I mean, they're a plant, right? They're a natural product. Usually when I demonstrate this, I show people the crazy amount of liquid that comes out of the mushrooms, and these really didn't do that. So that's why you just have to be ready to add that a little bit of water if you need to, but you do not want this swimming in liquid at any point. And I don't think I mentioned this earlier, but you don't want to steam your vegetables. That's why water saute can be a little bit dangerous. I don't know, dangerous might not be the right word, but you do not want to just dump in, a quarter cup of water at the start of the process, because then you're steaming your onions. Steamed onions are not good. You're sauteing, and that's why I really prefer an almost dry saute. And then you just scrape the pan. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and turn this off. Basically, this tofu scramble is almost done. That tofu just needs to get heated through, and it smells wonderful. I wish y'all could smell it. Okay, so I'm going to turn that off and move this out of the way. Take my gloves off, although I guess I could use them because I'm not too worried about cross-contamination to the sweet potatoes right now. All right, so we are going to roast vegetables now without oil. And That, I'm just checking to see if y'all have any questions. Okay. So, roasting vegetables without oil. Almost any recipe that you find for roasted vegetables is going to tell you to coat them in oil first. And even some people who will roast certain vegetables without oil will still tell you that you need to coat your sweet potatoes, or you need to coat your mushrooms, or whatever it is. You do not need to coat your vegetables in oil to roast them. Any vegetable that I have attempted has roasted without oil. I will say that my least successful attempt at roasting vegetables without oil is green beans. I don't know if you really want to roast green beans. It's not one that people do very frequently, but it is possible. You just need to eat them right away. It's not something that you want to do as a meal prep item. Everything else I'm doing tonight is great for prepping ahead and then keeping in the refrigerator, including all of the roasted vegetables. So, sweet potatoes. I've got some sweet potatoes here that I peeled and chopped up into about 1-inch pieces, and we are going to roast them in the oven. All you need to do is coat them with, not coat, but sprinkle them with a little bit of salt and whatever spices you'd like to use. I'm going to keep this really simple. This is one very large sweet potato, and it's probably 2 sweet potatoes because the ones that we have at Nature's Plate are really big. And then you want to put probably a quarter teaspoon of salt on there. It doesn't need a lot of salt. And I'm going to use about a half a teaspoon of smoked paprika. If you're only going to use one spice, which is obviously the easy way to go, smoked paprika is a really good one to use. It has a pretty complex and just really good flavor, and it stands on its own. It's really good on sweet potatoes and pretty much anything, I think. Okay, so I'm just coating these in the salt and smoked paprika, and then I'm going to put them on a sheet pan. I have lined this with nonstick foil. This is not a crucial step. You could use a Silpat, like a silicone baking sheet. You could also use regular foil, although the potatoes may stick just a little bit. And you could also use parchment paper, but they won't get quite as crispy. I recommend either the Silpat, the silicone baking mat, or nonstick foil. And I'm going to talk about nonstick foil just a little bit more because you may not have heard of it before. It's actually coated with silicone, a really light coating of it, which is similar to what is on the Silpat. So it's safe. It's not like Teflon or some weird chemical. The brand that I am using is one that we buy for our commercial kitchen, so it's not one that you would necessarily find at the store. It looks like this. But Reynolds makes one, and it's everywhere as far as I know. I know that it's at like Target and Kroger. The thing to know about nonstick foil is that it has a dull side and a shiny side, and you are putting the food on the dull side. This is the best way that I know to get your potatoes really crispy. We are also going to do some mushrooms. So I'm going to put those on a separate pan and just show you what that looks like. These are the same type of mushrooms. They're cremini mushrooms. I just cut them in half, or in some cases kept them whole and just trimmed the stems because I kept them, if they were this size, I kept them whole. These are going to shrink down a lot as they roast. I love roasted mushrooms. In this case, all I want to do is sprinkle them with a tiny bit of salt, like 1/8 of a teaspoon or less, and a lot of it's on the pan. It's not even on the mushrooms. But a little bit of salt will go a long way with mushrooms. So they're on the same nonstick foil, and I'm going to put the mushrooms and the sweet potatoes in a 425 oven. It's a hot oven. The mushrooms will take about 10 minutes, maybe 15, and the sweet potatoes will take 25 to 35 minutes, and you may need to rotate the sweet potatoes. If your oven isn't even, and very few of them are, you will want to rotate the pan and move it from top to bottom or bottom to top while you are doing that. So I'm going to put these in the oven. And my oven is not really hot. I didn't put mitts on, but I have some that are already done that I made a little while ago. So you can see that, first of all, they do not stick. And because of the nonstick foil, they're really well browned on the bottom. And they're browned a little bit on the top too, but these are like sweet potato fries. They are really good and they don't stick at all. Anyway, and you could do this with gold potatoes or russet potatoes and make like French fries without oil. If you have an air fryer, that's the final thing that I would like to talk about. And probably a lot of people got them for Christmas. I've got one sitting back here. And you can do potatoes in the air fryer too. I like to do a lot of potatoes, and the air fryer doesn't have that much capacity, so that's why I prefer the nonstick foil in the oven method. But the air fryer works exactly the same way. So I don't know if y'all know this, but an air fryer is really just a convection oven, a little mini convection oven that sits in your kitchen. I'm going to answer questions. So what size did you cut the potatoes? These were an inch, about an inch, and they weren't completely consistent, but about an inch. You can leave the skins on if you want to. I peeled the sweet potatoes, but I always leave the skins on my gold potatoes. You can cut the gold potatoes in strips like fries if you want to, or the russet potatoes, and leave the skins on. That's also really good. And you just have to adjust the cooking time. So they may take 40 minutes, they may take 45 minutes. Just check them with a fork before you take them out of the oven. You definitely do not want undercooked sweet potatoes or russet potatoes. All right, that is the potato. Back to the air fryer for just a minute. I want to say something else about that. I don't know about y'all, but every air fryer recipe that I see, and even the little book that I got with my air fryer a couple years ago, I was really disappointed to see that all the recipes in the little book that came with it said to put oil on the vegetables or on the potatoes, which is like, I'm like, okay, then why are we using an air fryer? That doesn't make any sense. I guess, I mean, it's better than deep frying, but you don't need to use oil in the air fryer either. So this is like the basket for the air fryer. And what I really like to do with my air fryer, and the capacity works really well for this, is, and it's also really fast. Like it takes about 8 minutes to do this, is to put plain frozen broccoli in, and maybe with a little salt and pepper and maybe some smoked paprika in the basket, and just air fry the broccoli straight out of the freezer. It is awesome. Best way to eat broccoli. I also like to do that with fresh asparagus, which is what I have right here. And yes, I use Old Nature's plate containers for food storage all the time. So this is just asparagus that I washed a little while ago and trimmed, and then I'm just going to dump it into the air fryer basket, sprinkle a little bit of salt on it, put it in the air fryer for about 8 minutes, and it will be roasted wonderfully. I'll go ahead and put a little bit of salt on it. You could also just use pepper or even just smoked paprika. Smoked paprika is like magic, and Tiffany, I saw your comment about it also. Okay, so we will cook that also. That is pretty much it for roasting and sauteing without oil. If y'all have any other questions about specific vegetables, I have not done this with oyster mushrooms, Tiffany, but I'm sure that you could, and you know what, I need to do that this very soon. I've been meaning to for a long time. And I don't see any reason why it wouldn't work, because it works with every other kind of mushroom. And I know oyster mushrooms have more of a meaty consistency, and I think that would be really good. Any other questions or concerns about how you might use this in your kitchen or for a specific recipe, just let me know. I do want to say that this is going to be my dinner. After I finish cooking the tofu, I turned the burner off. But the tofu scramble with the sweet potatoes and with the asparagus is going to be a great meal. And these are also all really good things just to keep in your refrigerator when you want to supplement a meal, or you don't have to make the tofu scramble. You can just use plain beans or seasoned beans with the potatoes and with the vegetable. But the pudding, and if you don't have an air fryer, let me back up and say this too. What I talked about with the frozen broccoli, as well as just plain asparagus, you can do that in your oven at about 450 degrees. It will take a little bit longer. It won't be done in 10 minutes, maybe 15. But you can also just put frozen broccoli into your oven. With the asparagus, and it helps if you elevate it on a rack. I used to do this before I had an air fryer, is just take plain asparagus, put it on a rack on top of a pan, like a rack that you use to cool cookies, and that helps the airflow around the asparagus, and you can get the same effect. It's roasted asparagus, and it tastes like you've probably had grilled asparagus with all the oil on it and everything. It tastes as good as that. It's really good, but not greasy. And once you start eating this way without adding oil or without eating a lot of oil, you really don't like that greasiness in your food. And that's a great adjustment for your taste buds, and can really help you with whatever your health goals are, including to feel amazing. So I'll just close out by talking a little bit more about that. I just want to let y'all know, obviously we want to help people do their own meal prep. We are here for you if you want to drop by and just grab a meal from us. You can go to naturesplate.com and see what we have at any of our 3 locations at any point. And we are still doing contactless curbside pickup on a daily basis. Only our Lake Highlands location is open 7 days a week at this point. During the pandemic, we've scaled back our store hours somewhat. And most people have really moved to having us deliver their meals or picking them up from us once a week. And we're happy to do it either way. We've really expanded our delivery capacity, and that's where the Eat Right and Feel Amazing promo comes in. It's 4 weekly meal plan subscriptions, and you can, if you go to naturesplate.com and click on ordering weekly, you will see all the details for that. And the code is just Feel Amazing to put in to get that discount. All right, any other questions or things that y'all would like to know? All right, it doesn't look like it. So thank you very much. I'm very sorry about all the technical difficulties at the beginning. I will post this video, not all of the other videos that didn't work at the beginning. And we are going to do this weekly, at least for the month of January. And I think I will remember what I had to do to make this work in the event. I was a little panicked, but I think I'll remember. And I think Marianne will be with me next week, and we will do another video and another topic about how you can eat right and feel amazing. So thank you very much for joining. I appreciate it. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.